Tonight on The Wrap, as Harry and Meghan prepare to return to the UK, the Prime Minister insists their security arrangements are up to them.
This is a private matter. It's a matter for Harry and for Meghan, and we wish them well in the move.
Meanwhile, Andy Burnham comes under pressure over government guidance telling asylum seekers not to rape or sexually assault people. Also tonight. Questions over whether plans to increase fines for flight tippers will really stop criminal gangs from dumping waste illegally. Plus, the results are in. Top grades for girls remain at GCSE, but boys are closing the gap. I'll be discussing the day's biggest stories with the New Statesman's associate political editor Rachel Cunliffe and the UK director of the More in Common think tank, Luke Tryl. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's papers at past. Good evening, Rachel, Luke. Good evening to you both as well. Andy Burnham has told Meghan and Harry that their security when they move back to the UK is a private matter. So is the Prime Minister telling the Sussexes they'll have to pay for it themselves. What do we think, Rachel, first?
I don't think what Andy Burnham said is entirely accurate. My understanding is there's a Home Office panel. It's not to do with the Home Secretary. There's an independent panel. There'll be a review. I imagine this will be fast-tracked, given that they want to move in by the end of the month. But it was quite a strong steer from Andy Burnham that he wasn't going to get involved, shall we say.
Yes, indeed. Luke, what about you?
Well, I think in his first month or first few weeks, Andy Burnham's proved quite adept at getting the public mood. And I certainly think when it comes to Harry and Meghan's security, the public will expect them to pay for it themselves. So I think at least he's in tune with the public.
We will hear more on the public mood from our pollster this evening, no doubt. Well, as we reported last night, Harry and Meghan are expected to come back to the UK later this month after 6 years in the US. In the past, Harry's taken the British government to court over the level of protection his family gets here in the UK. So who is going to pay for their security now? Our royal correspondent, Laura Bundock, has more.
For Prince Harry, the biggest block to bringing his family home has been security. He wants police protection, and we don't know if it's been sorted. Even the PM won't comment.
This is a private matter. It's a matter for Harry and for Meghan, and we wish them well in the move that they're making.
But it's not a private matter for Harry and Meghan. Publicly funded security is decided by a committee working under the Home Office. It assesses threats and high-profile people. That's why Taylor Swift had police protection here last year. In a statement, the Home Office said, "It is our long-standing policy not to provide detailed information on those arrangements, as doing so could compromise their integrity and affect individuals' security." But security aside, many are asking why, after all the upset, they're coming back. Harry isn't homesick, but he wants his children to understand his homeland. They're both enrolled in schools here for a British education. And it seems the Sussexes have been emboldened by recent trips, from their time in Australia to Harry's visit here in July. Those who know him well are thrilled he's heading home.
I think it's going to be good for the kids because it will enrich their lives by seeing their own family heritage, and it will also enrich the King's life by having his grandchildren around as well.
Where that'll be, we don't yet know, but it won't be a royal residence or in London. It's unlikely to be Windsor, William and Catherine's hometown. Relations there remain strained. The King, who's holidaying at Balmoral, only heard the news on Sunday. Pleased, we're told, he can see them more.
But he is also adamant changing their status as non-working royals is a non-starter. They can't be half in and half out. And yet their charitable work looks strikingly similar.
Harry very much focused on the Invictus Games in Birmingham next summer, and Meghan continuing with her causes, as well as commercial work with her As Ever brand. Some say their arrival justifies publicly funded security.
I think he should get protection of a sort, and I think his family should get the protection if they come to be residents in the United Kingdom. And I think, you know, from a sort of moral point of view, I think the mistakes of the past can very much paralyse the future.
Whether the public agree is another matter. Their ratings in the royal popularity polls remain low. This homecoming is a risk for the Sussexes and potentially the wider royal family. Laura Bundock, Sky News.
Well, let's get the views of Rachel and Luke on this. Luke, you've literally got your finger on the polls, pun intended. What is the sort of popularity rating as far as you have it when it comes to the two of them?
It's pretty low, it's fair to say. In fact, Prince Harry's net approval rating or net favourability is -13.
OK.
Meghan Markle's even lower at -32. I mean, the only two royals, or I guess ex-royals that we tested who are lower, and they're much lower, are Sarah Ferguson and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. All of the other royals we test are positive. But there is a nuance to that actually amongst younger people, Harry and Meghan actually have a positive approval rating, and they're the only two members of the family where approval is higher amongst young people than it is amongst old people. So, you know, they've always had this kind of potential to kind of broaden out the royal family's appeal, and I just wonder if, as they slowly get, you know, one assumes rehabilitated into the family, the royal family themselves might see that benefit of them being able to reach people that perhaps William and Kate can't.
Let's take a look at this from YouGov as well, while we're on the subject of the numbers, showing that a third of the British public are against the Sussexes' return. 21% of those questions are in favour of them coming back. 33% believe Harry and Meghan shouldn't move back to the UK. 45%, the majority there, or the biggest part, I should say, said they don't know. Perhaps they don't care either way. Rachel, what do you make of all of this? Because regardless of what the figures say, and certainly when you look at the popularity ratings that Luke mentioned there, even if people don't like them, they still seem to have an opinion on this one.
Well, people still like reading about them and talking about them and having opinions about them. So in a way, they perform, I think, a very valuable public function as, you know, celebrities providing entertainment, discourse, distraction from Westminster politics. You know, I imagine Andy Burnham is quite grateful in a way that this story has come along and means that whatever the next government, you know, scandal is, whether it's prisons or water or anything else, you know, he's got some time to deal with it before the focus is back on Westminster. And I think actually that's what the royal family should do. I just want to say one thing about the security, because I think possibly we're looking at this the wrong way. The focus is all on, you know, them. Do they deserve it?
Yeah.
And I can understand, you know, we're very cash-strapped at the moment. I can understand the public reaction to that. But just think about it the other way. Imagine if one of the Sussex children got kidnapped because, you know, a rogue state actor thought they don't have security, they're an easy target.
Yeah.
That would plunge us into a national crisis. Imagine the pressure on the King, on the government, on Andy Burnham, the Prime Minister. And I'm not sure that from a state security, you know, national security perspective, that's the kind of crisis we can afford.
But this is the tricky thing, isn't it? You call them celebrities yourself. They're not officially working royals. And if they're celebrities with lots of money, like plenty of celebrities, maybe they just pay for their own security. And that seems to be, if we can take what the Prime Minister said about this, to be what is going to happen.
Well, he said that it was a private matter, although, as I said, I think the Home Office panel is still looking into it. There's also the option of the royal family paying for it privately. We know that the late Queen paid for Andrew's security, and I think King Charles continued with that. The royals have their own private funds. We know that King Charles is quite happy that they're back, spending more time with his grandchildren, so maybe that will be part of the deal. I just think from an optics perspective, they are more celebrities than working royals. But if you were a terrorist group trying to exert maximum pressure and disaster and dysfunction on the British state, and you saw them as an easy target, that would be one route, and you would probably, as a government, want to avoid that. As
we saw in the piece, Luke, Taylor Swift was given security. We think that was 2024 because Rachel certainly remembered not being able to get to the Eras tour. I'm so sorry about that, Rachel. It was
I'm still not over it.
Well, I'm still not, and I went. It was fantastic. But that's beside the point. They do offer it to some people. The other part of the state paying for security is we've currently got 10 living current or ex-prime ministers to keep safe as well.
No, it's that photo at the Remembrance Service every year, which is growing and growing with the number of ex-Prime Ministers, and of course we've just added one to it. Look, I mean, I think for most people, again, each sort of average member of the public, I don't think there's a debate about them needing some level of security. I think all of the debate here is about what level of contribution they should be making, as Rachel said, what level of contribution the King should be making, and what level the state should be making. And I'm sure there's some arrangement between that triangle which can satisfy the security piece, but also not make the public feel like they're being taken from amongst the people who aren't doing the public duties.
The other thing that occurs to me about all of this, Rachel, is that we understand the King only found out this was happening at the weekend. But if there's something else we know about Harry in recent months and years, is he's kept things quite quiet until they actually happen. Coming over here, when he was over here last, Meghan, it seemed, perhaps did pop into the UK from where she was staying in Lisbon with the children. They seem to have been a little bit more careful, a little bit more private about their movements and their plans.
They don't trust the British media, particularly the British tabloid press, and seem to have worked out a way to keep some of them, their movements and their plans under wraps until the last moment. I know the reporting is that the King didn't know until Sunday. I am somewhat sceptical about that because I think plans for this will have been in the works. They won't have agreed to move over if it wasn't something that the King wanted. School places would have had to be found, although I guess if you were the school getting that call saying, do you have a place in 2 weeks' time for these two specific children, you probably would find a place. But there's a whole amount of logistics and operational planning that would go into this, and I suspect it has been at least discussed for some time.
Definitely has that feel about it, doesn't it? There's what we learn publicly, and Rachel's absolutely right. His relationship with certainly the written press is not particularly great, especially that last case not going the way he wanted. But it's hard not to think, surely there must have been arrangements behind the scenes that they're not going to necessarily share with us. And frankly, why do they have to?
Well, there must have been. I mean, the ordinary person can't just change their lives and move over from one country to another in 2 weeks. So there must have at least been in-train plans being made. And when they say the King only found out about the weekend, maybe that was when the decision was confirmed to him, but there'd been sort of exploratory conversations about it. Yeah, I'm afraid it just doesn't pass the smell test that in 2 weeks, you decide at a weekend, 2 weeks later you're moving countries. I just don't think it's possible.
Well, that story features on the front of the Daily Express with the headline, back in the fold, but not in the firm. We'll have a full rundown of what is in the rest of the papers at past, of course. Next, the Prime Minister has been defending a government document that makes the UK's rules on sex and consent explicitly clear to asylum seekers. That's after Reform UK described the leaflet as a scandal, and the Conservatives said that anyone needing the information doesn't belong in Britain.
As a government, we have a very clear principle. If you break UK law, you will be removed from the country. And we have seen that in relation to immigration, where removals are significantly up. I'm currently working to ensure that foreign national offenders who can be removed from the prison system are removed from that system. So it follows that if we're taking this approach, people are made it's made explicitly clear what the UK law is and what the societal norms of the UK are, and that's why this approach is being taken.
Well, the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, took to social media earlier on to say anyone needing this leaflet does not belong in Britain. I've been warning for a long time that not all cultures are equal. Britain can be proudly multi-ethnic, she says, but we should not be multicultural. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is here with us now. Always good to see you here, John. Look, we had a look at the posters last night. I know you've got them printed out there. I mean, for a lot of us here in Britain, it feels like they're stating the bleeding obvious, but I guess that's the point. Laws do change from country to country, cultures are different, and people may well be coming here for good reasons, where things are very different in terms of their background.
But critics are saying that this just shows that the sort of people who are coming here do not have British values, don't understand behaviours and expectations, as it says in the document. Of course, Tories are saying, Alicia Cairns was saying, she's one of the Home Affairs team for the Tories, it shows what the risk to the public from these people. Looking at them, I mean, these are the posters. I mean, these really are statements of the obvious. It's illegal to harass people. In the UK, men and women are equal. Legal age of consent is 16. Now, they're the posters. This is the document. There's 9 pages. It's got various chapters. Well, the most eye-catching one, the one that's attracted a lot of the comments and criticism, is the one sex and consent. Beg your pardon, sex and consent. If you have sex with someone without their consent, this is called rape. Rape is a serious crime in the UK. You could go to prison, lose your support and accommodation. It will affect your asylum claim. And then sex with someone under the age of 16 is a serious crime in the UK. Will they do any good? Not sure. Apparently, they've been translated into 16 languages.
Which languages are they, John?
Oh, don't ask me. I don't know which one. Oh, that's a question too far.
Well,
that's a tough one.
It tells the story in itself as to what languages they've bothered to.
Well, I suppose the languages of the countries where people are coming from.
Yes.
That'll be it, won't it?
You think so? What do you make of this, Rachel? I mean, is it stating the bleeding obvious, or is there a point to it?
I think it is both stating the bleeding obvious and there is a point to it. And in fact, sadly, Kemi Badenoch can say anyone who needs this doesn't belong in the UK. I have had direct experience of people who very much need this message of all nationalities, ethnicities and immigration status. I met quite a few of them, born and bred in Britain at university, who could definitely have done with documents or a workshop like that. And I think we are, unfortunately, going to have to confront the fact that, detrimental views of women, attitudes to women and sexuality exists across all cultures, nationalities, ages, classes, income groups. It is not something purely for asylum seekers. It is of a greater pertinence, perhaps, because laws and customs are different in different cultures. But that doesn't mean that it's unnecessary. And one thing that Jess Phillips said today that really struck me when she was asked about this, she pointed out everyone's focusing on, the message this sends to men, don't rape, here's what's expected of you. There's also guidance and information here for women. If you come to this country and this happens to you, you are protected. You can go to the authorities. The law says that this is not allowed and you can seek help, you can seek protection. And I think that's a really important message for women to be receiving, particularly vulnerable women who have come here who perhaps come from cultures where they wouldn't seek protection if something happened to them in those circumstances.
Yeah, the last page in this booklet is getting help. And it says if you think you may be a victim or know someone who is, help is available. Getting help or reporting a crime will not negatively affect your asylum claim. And there's various phone numbers and so on. Well, emergency contacts, domestic abuse section there as well, sexual abuse and rape, mental health as well.
Yeah, and if people are coming from cultures where women are oppressed, Afghanistan springs to mind, then that's going to be a new thing for them to experience if they are victims of something like that.
And the language help there, the language translation is, again, of particular relevance. If they're coming here, they don't speak English, perhaps the male members of their family do. Getting that information in a language that they can understand so they can seek help if they need to is very important.
Luke, there are more cynical people saying this has been done to sort of say, look, we've been responsible, we've done this, and if then something bad does then happen, they can point to this and say, well, look, we told them not to do it.
Yeah, look, I mean, Rachel, I entirely agree with, everyone in the country, regardless of background, should know the stuff which is contained in those posters and in that booklet. I think the challenge from a public confidence perspective is that certainly when I've been talking to people in focus groups about issues around immigration, but particularly asylum and channel crossings, there is no doubt that over the past couple of years, concern about public safety when it comes to things around asylum hotels has risen. Obviously, there have been some high-profile cases of sexual assault, and I think a lot of the public will see the government putting out something like this and say, well, this is confirming exactly what we thought.
Yeah.
There really is a risk to the public, and the fact that they're having to do this shows the government is alive to that risk. And it goes to the heart of, Britain, I talk to people all around the country, and Britons are generous, they are tolerant. Even a majority, actually, of, reform voters believe that the UK should take in some people in need, but through controlled and crucially vetted routes. And again, I think this risks reinforcing for lots of the public that there are people coming into the UK, particularly through channel crossings. We don't know their background. We don't know if they have a criminal history. We don't know, what their approach is when it comes to following, British laws, British culture as well. And so I think it will trigger concern among some people. I think that's a problem for the government.
Well, that's the argument the Tories have been making, that this just shows the risk. That's what they're claiming.
The thing is, John, since Andy Burnham came in as Prime Minister, a lot of people have talked about his communication skills. But the way this has been communicated, have they sort of dropped the ball a little bit on this? Because, look, we saw the posters and the pictures before the discussion came. Maybe they should have managed that whole message a bit better than this.
We learned about this. One of our colleagues, Tim Baker, on our political team, discovered it on the Home Office website. There was no press release, no government announcement.
Yeah.
It was just posted on the website, and that's how we learned about it. Other journalists found it too there. And that's how... And then, of course, the other political parties, Reform in particular, Zia Youssef, as you might expect, was particularly scathing about it. He said it was a disgrace and insane. And Reform obviously will tie this to the threat of grooming gangs and all that sort of stuff, and sex crimes by migrants, asylum seekers, and so on. But it has stirred up a debate. I think it's a debate the government probably wanted to avoid, and that's why they just put it on the website and didn't tell us about it.
Absolutely. But they didn't avoid it, did they?
No.
Thanks for the moment, John. Now, fines for criminals who dump waste illegally are to go up from £300 to £5,000. Government funds are also being diverted to help clean up 3 huge mounds of rubbish in Kent, in Surrey and in West Yorkshire. Critics say, though, it's not enough to stop the fly tipping. Sky's Shingi Mararike reports.
Mountains of waste piling up across the country, causing outrage that has now prompted a political response. This site on the Isle of Sheppey in Kent, one of the 3 places the Prime Minister promises to clear as part of a wider crackdown. One he says will bring the gangs behind waste crime to justice.
We are changing the approach. We've begun a much more networked approach to this, where we're bringing the National Crime Agency in to work with the Environment Agency, increasing the penalties and bearing down now on the organised crime that lies behind some of what you see behind me.
Part of that new approach includes increasing fines for criminals, bringing in drones for surveillance, and giving local councils more power to deal with the issue.
There's a lot of smoke.
Yeah, you can smell it as well. It's a very strong sort of plasticky smell coming out of there.
There are environmental concerns to deal with too, as Sky News has found at multiple sites, including this one in Nottinghamshire.
There was more than 55,000 tonnes of waste dumped here at Ranskill, according to the latest Environment Agency figures. But it's not just the scale of the waste being dumped here that's an issue, it's also what's in it. A Sky News investigation earlier this year revealed chemical substances found in the materials being dumped here. Another concern is the changing tactics of the criminal gangs, who now, instead of piling the rubbish high behind me, are also burying it in the ground.
This local councillor from the area not entirely convinced by today's announcement.
Anything that is additional is a help. That's the first thing to say. That's a positive thing. The negative side is we are shocked, dismayed, disappointed that we, as having 55,000 dumps of whatever it is, we don't know what it is not part of the 3 to be cleared up immediately.
The Prime Minister sees this as a pledge that protects communities from fly tippers. But just how much difference the new plans will make is being questioned by legal experts.
The claims that he's making are very bold and welcomed with my colleagues and myself in the industry. But some of the claims are factors that are already available. So I'm not sure whether some of it's a bit of rhetoric to make it look like something's being done. For example, he's saying there's new powers to seize vehicles. That power's already available.
Illegal waste sites are blighting communities across the country. But this is an issue that goes beyond just cleaning up. It's about tackling criminality and environmental damage too. Shingi Marike, Sky News, Ranksil.
You know what, Rachel, when you see those pictures, it incenses people. It's not hard to understand why.
It's incensing me now.
Yeah.
It's utterly horrific. And I think it's one of those policy challenges, a bit like rough sleeping, a bit like the degrading high streets, boarded up shops, that is just a very visible sign that something has gone wrong in society, in politics. And the thing that really, I'd be interested to know what Luke thinks of the polling on this, but from speaking to people in sort of out and about in elections and things, the thing that people don't understand is why it is so difficult to stop. Why can't they just clear it up? And I think the answer is it's a complicated mix of local councils and the Environment Agency, and it's one of those things, there are different government bodies and everyone says it's not our fault and it's to do with funding.
It goes round and round
and it goes round and round and round. But if you are a resident living next to one of these illegal tips, you go, why can't they just clear it up?
Yeah.
And the fact that they can't, it's like potholes, just shows everything must be broken if you can't fix this very visible and seemingly very simple problem.
What do you think about the fines going up? Because, look, the organised criminal gangs behind this know full well the prisons are pretty full right now. So, is an increase in fine going to stop this when they can make, obviously, an awful lot of money getting rid of waste illegally like this?
Well, you've got to find them before
you
can find them. That's hard to say on air. And so that's part of the problem as well. And no, I don't think it will be a massive disincentive. This, to me, the announcement is sort of symptomatic of what Andy Burnham has done several times over the course of the summer, which is you identify a problem, you show the public that you get it, you're on their side, and there is polling data that shows that the public do feel that he gets it and he's on their side, and he goes, we're going to fix this. But that's the easy part. The harder part is actually doing something about it, and I'm not sure from today I get a sense that there is a plan to deal with some of the structural issues that are driving this.
Actually, Luke, Rachel hits upon something there. What he's trying to do, it seems like, with his strategy is address things that people can see.
Or smell.
Or smell, certainly, and get angry about, whether it be illegal rubbish tips or homelessness that we've been hearing, rough sleeping, and that kind of thing. Maybe it'll be potholes next. He has talked about potholes. But that seems to be part of the strategy. This is so visible and so infuriating, it needs tackling.
Absolutely. And the first test that I think any politician has to pass now is to show that they get it when it comes to the issues which do, like illegal waste dumps, drive people mad, right? They think you're infuriating. Rachel's absolutely right. They don't understand. Why can't we just stop this? Why can't we catch the people doing it and clear it up? And on a number of issues, Andy Burnham seems to be going out of his way to pass that I get it test and to demonstrate something that I call the sort of politics of trying. Because I think there's this assumption that the public have become kind of unreasonable, that they expect governments to be able to wave a magic wand and sort of thing. I don't think that's true. What I think they want to know is that the government understands and is working on a plan. And I think that's where so often Keir Starmer fell down, because it often seemed like he was almost doing a sort of politics of can't. Well, government can't do this because of this, and we inherited this because of this. Whereas Andy Burnham is saying, this is a problem, I get it. And of course, in his own constituency in Hindley, having spent a lot of time there in the run-up to the by-election, they have an illegal waste dump, and he's clearly seen public anger on that. He's setting out a response to it. And I think the politics of trying does get you so far. At some point, the politics of trying has to turn into the politics of achieving. But I think the public will give him some grace to get there.
Just very quickly, do you think that increase in fines is enough? I mean, I think I'm right in saying if fly tippers are caught and end up in Crown Court, the maximum prison term is 5 years on top of fines as well. But for the most part, doesn't quite get that far. So do you think what they've announced today is going to make a tangible difference?
Well, what I don't know is at the moment what proportion of people get caught, because there might be a sort of there might be an economics of it, which is, I'll just pay the fine because it's worth keeping doing it. If the fine gets larger, maybe it helps. But again, I think this is as much about saying to the public we're going to increase the fines than it is the people, the perpetrators.
Coming up next, we're going to take a first look at what is making the front pages of tomorrow's papers.
jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
It is time now to see what is making the front pages of tomorrow's papers. And the Eye's lead story is ours as well. The Sussex is returning to Britain at some point this month, but without taxpayer-funded security arrangements in place. The Daily Mail carries estimates that funding could cost £5 million a year. The Daily Mirror hears the King and Prince William's opinion of the couple hasn't changed, and they won't be welcome, they say. According to the Telegraph, though, that won't stop Harry from trying to regain his father's trust. The Sun reports that Charles, Camilla, William and Catherine have travelled to Balmoral to discuss the matter. And here's the Times headline: King puts William first as Harry heads home. While the Daily Express describes Harry and Meghan as back in the fold, but not in the firm. And the Daily Star suggests the move is happening in part because they don't like Donald Trump. Elsewhere, The Guardian speaks to the Minister for Women and Equalities, Bridget Phillipson, who's fairly new in that job, who accuses Reform and the Conservatives of encouraging racism and misogyny in the UK. The Metro hails as a hero the man who used a hosepipe to tackle an apparent arson attack on his neighbour's home in West London. A woman died in the fire. A murder investigation is now underway. Lastly, the Financial Times has a report on the current state of long-term government bonds in the US. I think I'm right in saying the US has started taking out more debt to buy back its own debt, which doesn't sound like it's going to end particularly well, if indeed it ever ends when it comes to national debt. But that's a whole other story, because the one dominating the papers is, of course, the Royals. Rachel, let's get straight to it. It's on 6 front pages that we're going to discuss. Let's start with the Eye. Back, but without security arrangements in place. Well, as far as we know, maybe they know something we don't.
Maybe they know something we don't. Andy Burnham came out pretty clearly and said it's a private matter, although you could interpret that as, I don't think it's any of my business, I'm the Prime Minister, I'm too busy running the country, ask somebody else, which is, you know, valid. The way these things work is that there is a Home Office panel that is not directed by the Home Secretary, that assesses high-profile individuals and the security needed, and that, we believe, is still underway. So it looks like Harry and Meghan have made this decision without clear guarantees or a scheme being in place. That doesn't mean that there hasn't been some discussion, perhaps with the royal family, with the King, about what's going to happen, because this has been the sticking point to them returning for the last 6 years. Yeah, the Daily Mail looks at the cost, if it is taxpayer-funded, Luke, and they reckon it's £5 million a year, which is not an insignificant chunk of change.
It's not an insignificant chunk of change, and it perhaps puts into context the Prime Minister's, I think, very clear desire from that clip and his statement to say that this is a private matter. I think the last thing that Downing Street would want to be seen to do is that during a time when, you know, lots of people are still feeling the pinch, when public finances are certainly feeling the pinch, saying that we are adding on extra costs for a couple who, fairly or not, do not particularly attract much public sympathy. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that people don't think they should be protected. The matter is who pays for that.
It seems like, Rachel, we were looking at the Daily Express just prior to an announcement was on the front pages, and you think they're hedging their bets a little bit with their headline, which is back in the fold but not in the firm. I think it's really interesting because some of the other papers, particularly the tabloids, you know, the Daily Mail has led on the cost. The Mirror goes for no way back to a royal life. You know, they make it very clear whose side they're on in this. Yeah. And the Daily Express, back in the fold but not in the firm. I think that's quite neutral. It's quite descriptive. That is, they're not coming back to be working royals, but there is some family reconciliation in the works, it looks like. And obviously the Daily Express, its relationship with the royal family, its attitude to, for example, Princess Diana, it's taken a different tone, the rest of them. And I think that's interesting because, you know, for all the polling right now says that they are unpopular. Luke, correct me if I'm wrong,
I think they were popular at the beginning. There was a point when they were popular and they were able to sort of command enthusiasm and excitement from people who actually didn't have much interest in the royal family. So if they do come back and they play their publicity cards right, maybe the conversation could change.
The Daily Telegraph says Harry hopes to win back the King's trust. As someone who has read and reviewed from cover to cover his book Spare, do you think he can do that after publicising all those thoughts of his?
So it is a very painful read, and I think it is a painful read for any of the characters involved, including Harry himself. And he does reveal a lot that in any normal family you wouldn't want publicised, let alone a family that has the never complain, never explain mantra. That said, that was a few years ago. There is a suggestion in some of the papers that an agreement has been reached that if he does come back, from this point onwards, a bit more discretion, a little bit less, you know, going to YouTube or Netflix or a podcast anytime there's a grievance. And let's not forget as well that the King has been diagnosed with cancer. We don't know the prognosis, the timeline of that. He hasn't got to spend really any time with his grandchildren at all in the last 6 years. There's a family element to this too, so maybe some kind of resolution could be on the cards.
Luke, the Daily Star says Harry's Don a runner, and that's a pun on Don because Trump is the reason for the US Megxit. And when you think about it, there's a lot of Americans who have moved to the Cotswolds for that very reason, it seems. Plenty of famous stars. In fact. So what do you make of this?
Of course, J.D. Vance is also a fan of the Cotswolds and enjoyed...
if he gets his fishing licence, of course.
Exactly. Again, this is perhaps unsurprising, right? We know that Meghan in particular, I think, falls into that kind of, Hollywood, liberal, Donald Trump's politics aren't hers. Donald Trump has made very clear what he thinks of the two of them. But, of course, that's in great contrast to the great Trump whisperer is the King. Himself. And again, I wonder if that will end up becoming part of the sort of diplomatic calculation on welcoming them back, recognising that basically when we need something for Trump now, we have to deploy the King in order to do it. We don't want to sour that with them thinking, oh, Harry and Meghan don't like me.
Can I tell you why I think they've done it now this time?
Please.
I think they want their children to have English accents. Their children are 5 and 7.
Yeah. And
I think if they are to have any prospect of re-entering the royal family, becoming working royals, just even to have the option of it at some point, they can't do that with Californian accents. The British public would never accept it.
But what kind of English accent? I mean, is it going to be RP? If they really want to win favour, why didn't they make them speak like Scousers or Mancunians or Geordies? Everyone loves a Geordie accent.
Or Manchester now, it's the new capital.
Absolutely.
That would be fitting.
Move down the road from number 10 North.
I think the accent that generally communicates sort of the most trustworthiness, it's a soft Edinburgh accent, isn't it, that people really like.
South Walians, why there's been a lot of call centres in South Wales and the North East.
Yeah,
lovely. Anyway,
loads of options.
It's not going to happen, is it? But I take your point on the accent. Let's very quickly have a look at the front page of The Guardian. Phillipson accuses Reform and Tories of fuelling bigotry. Rachel, and she's new in this role. I mean, it was seen as a bit of a demotion from Education Secretary.
Well, I think she held the brief when she was Education Secretary, but then Education was stripped from her and given to Lucy Powell. And now it's quite unusual to have someone holding this brief and not another cabinet role, but she's kind of stayed on in that capacity. And she has spoken on this podcast and said, has really spoken quite bluntly about racism and sexism being normalised, but in particular calling out Conservatives and Reform figures, calling out Nick Timothy for his comments on a public prayer event to celebrate Eid, which he called was it an invasion or an act of domination.
Okay.
And so it's pretty strong stuff.
Yeah, it is, and it is The Guardian's lead story. Let's just finish off looking at our front pages, talking about a small story on the front of the Daily Telegraph, Luke, about a shopper who was banned from wearing a backless dress, which is a bizarre story. Do enlighten us.
It is. So this is a woman claimed that a postmistress didn't actually ban her from the shop, but gave her a warning to say that she had to be covered up next time she visited the store. And she was pointed to a sign in the window which says, "We do understand it's very hot, but because this is a convenience store of food and post office, we can't allow topless, backless, or just with bra or too much exposure."
Can I just say that just before we came on air, Luke was asking what a backless dress was or what counted as a backless dress.
But then when you explained it, I was like, I don't understand how this can be controversial.
This is not... that reveals your back.
Yeah, no, but...
It's interesting they banned backless dresses and sleep, but no frontless dresses. So, maybe try that and see what happens. Very... It's like something from a bygone era, isn't it? A postmistress ticking you off for your attire.
With a sign in the window to say, these are the rules of the post office. I sympathise in the heatwave, but one thing that really does get to me is men wandering around just shirtless every time it gets above 30 degrees. Like in a park, it's fine, but in Tesco's,
even people
it's
jogging through
weird.
London shirtless, I find
on the tube.
On the tube. What?
But we're talking about the sort of need for sort of climate adaptation. If we're going to keep having
just taking all your clothes off.
Well, I think we're within reason, but I think we're going to have to get a bit more liberal with cooling measures.
How much? Where's the line, Luke?
I think men being topless is still just the right side.
Here's the thing: if you are wearing a backless dress and you go to a post office, walk in forwards and then just back out, and they will never be any the wiser, of course. Next, thousands of teenagers across England, Wales and Northern Ireland found out their GCSE results this morning, with the gap between boys and girls shrinking to its narrowest point this century. Girls saw a slight drop in performance, but still outperformed boys, who saw an improvement in their results. Our education reporter, Anjan Pirbakos, found out how some students got on at a school in North London.
Oh! I'm actually really happy with that. I'm really happy with that.
Can you share with us?
Yeah. So I've got a 5 in English literature, an 8 in maths, a 6 in biology, a 6 in chemistry, a 7 in physics, a 5 in English language, a 5 in French, a 3 in history, and a passing full nuts.
That is phenomenal. Huge congratulations. That is amazing. Blessing, can I come to you? Are you ready?
That's really good.
Oh my gosh.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Sorry. I got a 7.7 in science, a 9 in art.
Amazing! Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?
I never expected a 9 in art. Oh my gosh. A 7 in English literature, a 7 in maths, a 7 in language, a 6 in French, a 6 in history, and a pass in performing arts.
Oh my goodness, huge congratulations. Can I give you a hug? Oh my goodness, well done. That is amazing. Are you okay?
I'm so proud.
That is just so amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Do you know what? We discuss GCSE results and, of course, A-levels recently every year, and I just think well done to everybody. My GCSE results were worse than bang average, so I see people getting such fantastic results. I think well done to them, because the pressure these days, I sound like an old dad, and that's exactly what I am, but the pressure these days is much greater, it seems, with the grade inflation and 9 suddenly becoming the top, so everyone thinks they haven't done that well if they haven't got a 9, when a 7 is the equivalent of an A, and that kind of thing. It just seems harder now.
Yeah, it's pressure from the schools, pressure from parents, pressure from social media, and a lot of young people you speak to, and they don't know if they're going to have any future prospects at all if they don't get these grades. And then they do really well, and the politician response often, not always, but often is, oh, there are too many people getting the highest grades, we've made them too easy. It could just be that the kids are getting better, maybe, or some of them.
Although there's a slight drop, I think, in the pass rate overall, even though there's an increase in the highest grades. This is something you know quite a bit about. Explain.
It's Luke's fault.
It's his fault.
It's Luke's fault that we're not doing A's, B's and C's anymore, is that right?
Well, we basically had, their new qualifications, and actually the reason for changing to numbers away from the letters was so that people would know these are the new qualifications, and these are certainly tougher in terms of both content and rigour than the ones that replace them. So I do sympathise with young people. But yeah, GCSE and A-level days, when I was in the department, the days that used to bring me out in sweats, because there's so much potential for stuff to go wrong. But I think it's interesting that the pass rates are going back down, but they were supposed to, because you remember we had that big jump during the pandemic when kids ended up getting their predicted grades. There was an attempt by the exam boards to kind of divine results, and that didn't work at all, and they ended up having to go with the predicted grades. And one of the things which I thought was interesting, there's been a lot of hand-wringing, rightly so, from when I was in the department, about that gender gap, about the fact that boys seem to be falling further and further behind.
A GCSE, not at A-level.
A GCSE, not at A-level at 16. And part of that is because some boys are knocked out before you get to A-level or grow another path. And actually, the fact that it's closing could be a sign of a good thing, could be that actually we're managing to address that.
You're the numbers guy. I was pretty terrible at maths and statistics and all that kind of thing. But the fact that they change year on year, well, that's to be expected, isn't it? Because the cohort changes year on year. It's going to happen.
Yeah, no, very definitely it is supposed to change. And actually, there is something, not to get too technical, but basically a sort of national reference test that the cohort does, where you can broadly see what the distribution should be of grades, and then it's sort of matched to that as well. So you recognise not every year is the same. It gets different. And ideally, as a society, as a country, you kind of want to be getting better and better and better, and we should celebrate that.
We were saying we think you should have, when you were in the department designing these, made 11 the top grade in reference to Spinal Tap, because it's one better. If you scan the QR code on your screen right now, you can read the analysis on our Money blog of the best and worst university degrees for lifetime earnings. And coming up, UK cinemas consider a ban on Meta's AI glasses over piracy and privacy concerns.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood is rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Sky News has been given exclusive data showing every Palestinian who has been killed in Gaza since the war began. Our analysis of this pattern in the killings suggests that entire families were wiped out in their homes or shelters. The data and forensics team is a multi-skilled unit dedicated to providing transparent journalism from Sky News. We located footage of the aid drop to a tent camp in central Gaza.
These airdrops are falling in extremely populated areas.
We combine traditional reporting with advanced analysis of satellite imagery, social media, and other open source information. Now, this is just one of the strikes and incidents we've been able to geolocate across Gaza. Sky News has found Nazi speeches and marching music have been used as background sound on tens of thousands of TikTok videos as far-right groups try and spread their message. Sky News has seen 72,000 posts used in this way. There's no evidence yet of foul play at Heathrow. It shows weaknesses that enemies could take advantage of. Elon Musk says it is, quote, a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America. Supporters say it saves lives and projects American power and influence.
I think we would generally be called far-right, sure.
It's called Return to the Land, and they invited me in.
A lot of people are going to be, why are you making Nazi references? Right. Well, why wouldn't I?
Its founder says he is building a fortress for the white race.
It's a racial association. I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
We followed a social media trail that led us to Bristol, where a confrontation between protesters erupted into a full-scale riot.
Here it really is pitched battle skirmishes, hurling missiles, throwing punches.
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live.
They have gone up and up.
Big Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Now, the UK's cinema industry is considering banning Meta's AI glasses, which let wearers discreetly record using a camera embedded in the frame. Often it's hard to see. Operators are looking at ways to balance piracy concerns with accessibility. A Meta spokesperson said limiting how people can use this technology would be a major step backwards. Naturally, some places shouldn't be filmed at all, and that's reasonable. But rules should be applied consistently, they say. Our glasses have a light that turns on to let people know when a photo or video is taken, something smartphones and other cameras don't have. What do we think about this, Luke? Because there's a lot of discussion about these glasses, not just in places like cinemas, and you can understand the piracy concerns, but just in general, yes, they have a light on. It's pretty small. You don't often know you're being filmed. I mean, you might not be able to see a light on a phone, but if someone's doing that, you've got a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I have to say I'm in the camp of I just find all of this type of sort of wearable tech and kind of like slightly creepy, to be honest, because just the idea that someone could be filming just by looking at you, as you say, with a phone, you can't always tell, but we're more aware and conscious of it. I just think there's something not quite right about it. I don't like it, and you obviously can't put the genie back in the bottle. But aside from areas where it helps with things like disabilities and accessibility, I would quite like just to get rid of them entirely.
Although if you walked in a cinema wearing that sports version that we saw Mickey wearing there, you're really going to turn heads, aren't you?
Yeah,
Rachel,
right.
your thoughts?
You're either wearing the Meta glasses or you've taken a lot of drugs to go watch The Odyssey, and the cinema lights are a little bit too bright for you. No, we can't put the genie back in the bottle, but we can, rely on good old-fashioned social stigma. And I think already, they're being called pervert glasses, which is not something Meta wanted. Cinemas are looking at banning them. I think courts in the UK have already banned them.
Yeah.
Wetherspoons has said they're going to ban them, potentially. I think the risk is just everyday interactions being filmed without you knowing about it. And I've been on the tube and seen people, men, take photos surreptitiously of women on the tube, and you can just about tell when they're doing it, but sometimes you can't. In glasses, you're never going to be able to know. So, as a woman moving through the world, the knowledge that I could be filmed at any moment and I wouldn't know it is really creepy. And I just don't think that the tech guys who thought this up in their Silicon Valley boardrooms ever considered that.
Possibly not. Interestingly, it is advice in those posters for asylum seekers to not film or record people in public as it happens, which technically is legal, but socially perhaps it's questionable. It is. Are we going to do the weather next? Yes, I think we are. Here it is.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
We are in a cooler spell with some heavy showers around, but the weekend is going to be mostly fine. Many places will have a dry start tomorrow. If cool, there will be a few showers, some heavy and prolonged. Expect further showers through the morning, but they'll be more scattered than today with good sunny spells. Ireland, Northern Ireland, North East England, Wales and the West Country will see the most showers, some heavy. The greatest risk of thundery downpours will be in the southwest.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Coming up here on The Wrap, the Prime Minister tells Harry and Meghan that when they return to the UK, their security is a private matter. More at 11.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city, where there's a column of Russian army I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Tonight on The Wrap, as Harry and Meghan prepare to return to live here in the UK, the Prime Minister insists their security arrangements are up to them.
This is a private matter. It's a matter for Harry and for Meghan, and we wish them well in the move that they're making.
Meanwhile, the PM comes under pressure over government guidance telling asylum seekers not to rape or sexually assault people. Also tonight. Questions over whether plans to increase fines for fly tippers will really stop criminal gangs from dumping waste illegally. Plus, we discuss the day's biggest stories with the new Statesman's associate political editor Rachel Cunliffe and the UK director of the More in Common think tank, Luke Tryl. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's papers at 11:30. Evening all. Rachel, Luke, good to have you here as well. Andy Burnham has told Meghan and Harry that their security when they move back to the UK is, and I quote, a private matter. So is the PM telling the Sussexes they'll have to pay for it themselves. What do you think, Luke?
Well, it does sort of sound like that, doesn't it? And again, you know, Andy Burnham is so in tune, I actually think, with the public mood on this stuff that any suggestion that when he's talking about tough decisions on finances that we're going to be spending millions on the Sussexes' security is a bit of a non-starter for most people.
Is it a definite or is it a bit of a fudge?
It's the we wish them well, I think, which is
sounds like a fudge.
bit of a fudge, but just, you know, it's a don't ask me. This is below my pay grade, actually, if he's the Prime Minister. Look, we don't know what the Home Office is going to say. We don't know what the royal family is going to say. I think some compromise arrangement must be in the works for them to have made this announcement.
Below the Prime Minister's pay grade. I'm not... He's top of the tree. Look, as we reported last night, Harry and Meghan are expected to come back to the UK later this month after 6 years in the US. In the past, Harry's taken the British government to court over the level of protection his family gets here in the UK. So just who is going to pay for their security once they return? Our royal correspondent, Laura Bundock, has more.
For Prince Harry, the biggest block to bringing his family home has been security. He wants police protection, and we don't know if it's been sorted. Even the PM won't comment.
This is a private matter. It's a matter for Harry and for Meghan, and we wish them well in the move that they're making.
But it's not a private matter for Harry and Meghan. Publicly funded security is decided by a committee working under the Home Office. It assesses threats and high-profile people. That's why Taylor Swift had police protection here last year. In a statement, the Home Office said, "It is our long-standing policy not to provide detailed information on those arrangements, as doing so could compromise their integrity and affect individuals' security." But security aside, many are asking why, after all the upset, they're coming back. Harry isn't homesick, but he wants his children to understand his homeland. They're both enrolled in schools here for a British education. And it seems the Sussexes have been emboldened by recent trips, from their time in Australia to Harry's visit here in July. Those who know him well are thrilled he's heading home.
I think it's going to be good for the kids because it will enrich their lives by seeing their own family heritage, and it will also enrich the King's life by having his grandchildren around as well.
Where that'll be, we don't yet know, but it won't be a royal residence or in London. It's unlikely to be Windsor, William and Catherine's hometown. Relations there remain strained. The King, who's holidaying at Balmoral, only heard the news on Sunday. Pleased, we're told, he can see them more. But he is also adamant changing their status as non-working royals is a non-starter. They can't be half in and half out. And yet their charitable work looks strikingly similar. Harry very much focused on the Invictus Games in Birmingham next summer, and Meghan continuing with her causes, as well as commercial work with her As Ever brand. Some say their arrival justifies publicly funded security.
I think he should get protection of a sort, and I think his family should get the protection if they come to be residents in the United Kingdom. And I think, you know, from a sort of moral point of view, I think the mistakes of the past can very much paralyse the future.
Whether the public agree is another matter. Their ratings in the royal popularity polls remain low. This homecoming is a risk for the Sussexes and potentially the wider royal family. Laura Bundock, Sky News.
You know what, Rachel? I'm still getting my head around the fact that this kind of broke this time last night, that they're coming back. I mean, it did come out of left field, didn't it?
For us, it came out of left field, and apparently for the King as well, who we hear.
Yeah, we understand on Sunday.
But there was a meeting earlier in the summer. There was reconciliation, and I think talks must have been in the works for some time. You can't move your entire family, move schools, and everything on 2 weeks' notice. I think the suggestion is it the Star, possibly, that they're moving because they're sick of Donald Trump. Is
the
quite
Star, yes.
It's quite a fun one. You could also, on a more kind of human, personal note, perhaps the suggestion is the King hasn't got to spend very much time with his grandchildren over the last 6 years since they left, and it's an opportunity, since his cancer diagnosis, to reconcile and to resolve some of those family tensions.
Luke will have some numbers on this, but before we get to those, I want to show you this from YouGov, and it shows that a third of the British public are against the Sussexes' return. 21% of those questioned are in favour of them coming back. 33% believe Harry and Meghan should not move back to the UK. There it is. 45% So the biggest chunk out of that said they don't know. Maybe they just don't care. Maybe they're just ambivalent. And is that the kind of polling you've seen, Luke, on the royals and Harry and Meghan in particular?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that polling, the number that jumped out to me was that don't know figure. And I'm actually a big fan of asking, maybe we'll do it this weekend, of actually offering, as well as don't know, a don't care option, because I think a lot of people merge them together. But yeah, 45% saying don't know suggests that perhaps this issue isn't animating the public quite as much as the, I think, spread across almost all the papers would suggest. Look, what do we know about Harry and Meghan? They're not popular with the public. Both of them have negative favourability ratings there, whereas most of the royals, with the exception, understandably, of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and Sarah Ferguson, who have lower ones, most of them have more positive ones. But the interesting thing is that when it comes to young people, they actually have higher approval ratings. So amongst the under 35s, they're positive, they have a favourable view. And I just sort of think, as they come back, as they look at reconciliation, I think it would do the royal family well to think about how can we use these two who clearly can reach people that perhaps William and Kate can't, perhaps the King and Camilla can't, to strengthen the royal family. Because it's not like the royal family has had a great couple of years in public opinion terms. What can Harry and Meghan add?
I think that point about not what's happened to Harry and Meghan in the past 6 years, but what's happened to the royal family in the past 6 years is really key, because you had that interview of Andrew on Newsnight, and then you had the Epstein files and the stripping of his titles, and then the revelation that the late Queen, who was really sort of almost universally popular, she had been supporting him financially through all the legal issues, and then continuing to pay his security, and that King Charles had continued to pay his security as well. The royal family as an institution has been hit by a rolling scandal that is so much deeper and so much more serious than did Harry and Meghan make a slightly ill-informed Netflix documentary. Is the fact that she wants to do podcasts and make jam and a bit, not what the royal family does. It just pales in comparison to the Andrew scandal. And so is there an opportunity with them coming back to, one, recapture some of that energy and excitement when she first became part of the royal family, and two, enable the royal family to move on from this really haunting scandal that has also left it quite short of royals, actually, when you think about the number of frontline working royals. Yeah,
look, let's not forget the King has his own challenges with his cancer diagnosis. We've heard the Queen, Camilla, talking about that in recent days, of course. Everything Rachel points out there is, of course, right, and we know about that stuff. How has the King's own rating changed in recent years? Because, look, anecdotally, it seems that people have thought, he's actually doing a pretty good job. Obviously, big shoes to fill coming after Queen Elizabeth II.
I think that's very definitely the case. I remember shortly after he became king doing focus groups with people, and they were sort of saying, well, he's the king, and we like the monarchy, but we're not as sure. And certainly he didn't match up to the late Queen. I think since then, people have sort of thought, well, actually, he's doing a pretty good job. He understands the role. There were obviously some people worried he'd be a bit too outspoken on things which the monarchy shouldn't really, or the king certainly shouldn't talk about. He hasn't done that. After he went to the US and gave that address to Congress, I remember reading from people like, he's played a blinder. People really liked it. That said, he has certainly not escaped public criticism for all of Andrew's sort of scandals and everything that he's caught up with. And so, he's not at the Queen levels. People have a lot of respect for him. They're worried about the Andrew stuff. And so I think in terms of thinking about the long term of the royal family, it is now, how do you broaden that? How do you make it an institution which people feel reflects their lives as much as possible?
Well, the interesting thing is we're talking about them potentially injecting a bit more relatability into the royal family. I mean, you said the polling there is better for younger people. Meghan being mixed race as well, being American. This is all the stuff that was talked about when they first got together and married. My question, Rachel, just to finish off, is can they get that back? Can they get that feel-good factor, that relatability, and turn things around?
I think they'd have to work quite hard at it, and they'd also have to play down the impulse of the last couple of years, which is any time they feel slighted in any way, either by the royal family or by the British media, running off and doing a podcast or a YouTube clip or something about it. So they're going to have to play the long game if that's what they want. There isn't a suggestion so far that they have any interest in going back to being working royals, but they're still a family, so there are different ways of playing this.
So make the jam, but just don't film it when you do so. That story features on the front of the Express with the headline, "Back in the fold, but not in the firm." We'll have a full rundown of what is in the rest of the papers in about 18 minutes' time. Now, the Prime Minister has been defending a government document that makes the UK's rules on sex and consent explicitly clear to asylum seekers. That's after Reform UK described the leaflets and posters as a scandal, and the Conservatives said anyone needing the information doesn't belong in Britain.
As a government, we have a very clear principle. If you break UK law, you will be removed from the country. And we have seen that in relation to immigration, where removals are significantly up. I'm currently working to ensure that foreign national offenders who can be removed from the prison system are removed from that system. So it follows that if we're taking this approach, people are made it's made explicitly clear what the UK law is and what the societal norms of the UK are, and that's why this approach is being taken.
The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, took to X a bit earlier on to say anyone needing this leaflet does not belong in Britain. I've been warning for a long time, she says, that not all cultures are equal. Britain can be proudly multi-ethnic, but we should not be multicultural. You will have spotted our chief political correspondent John Craig has squeezed in on the end there to talk about this leaflet. Look, it sort of seemed to emerge yesterday unannounced, unexplained, and maybe that's the problem.
Yes, I think the Home Office were a bit caught off guard when suddenly they started getting phone calls from journalists. Our colleague Tim Baker spotted it, one of the first journalists to spot it. In fact, I think he was the first, on the Home Office website. They hadn't put out any announcement, and then journalists started spotting it. Opposition politicians started reacting to it in a very hostile way, as you've mentioned. Reform UK's Zia Youssef said it was insane, it was a disgrace. You've given what Kemi Badenoch said about it.
Yeah.
One of the Tory Home Affairs team, that's Alicia Cairns, said this just shows the risk from these people when we're having to say to these people, don't rape people and don't commit other crimes as well. This is the document. Yeah, there it is. Actually, you've got it up on the screen there. Yeah. Understanding behaviours and expectations of the UK. Chapter headings: gender equality, domestic abuse, sex and consent, respect in public, and I suppose we should say getting help at the end. I mean, the one that's the page that's got all the comment really is the one sex and consent, where it says if you have sex with someone without their consent, this is called rape. Rape is a serious crime in the UK. You could go to prison, lose your support and accommodation. It will affect your asylum claim. And then it says on the age of consent, sex with someone under the age of 16 is a serious crime in the UK. Now, that, of course, gets all the opposition politicians say, oh, look at these dreadful crimes committed by some of these asylum seekers.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's all led to demonstrations outside asylum hotels and so on. So I'm not sure if this helps.
What do you think, Rachel? Is there any harm in being this explicit about what is expected in this country?
Well, I think Kemi Badenoch's comment is interesting because she says we could be multi-ethnic without being multicultural. You sort of suggesting there that people need to integrate, they need to understand the culture that they are coming into. This document is an attempt to do that. It's explaining, it's setting out the laws and also the norms of British society. I don't think there's any harm in that whatsoever. Actually, the thing that surprised me is that there wasn't a document like this or training or workshops or anything like this available before. I would have thought that was just basic common sense. And I think it's actually quite disingenuous for the opposition parties to act like the document in and of itself suggests that there is an increased risk of this particular group. We know that violence against women and girls is an issue across all demographics of society. I'm thinking back a couple of weeks to the World Cup when incidents of domestic violence hit an absolute record high, and I don't want to make too many stereotypes, but I don't think that was driven primarily by asylum seekers in this country. It's an issue across cultures and demographics. And frankly, you never hear Reform or indeed much of the Conservative Party talk about tackling violence against women and girls, talk about funding refuges or rape crisis centres or putting the money into education in schools. You don't hear them talk about any of that. They only get upset about violence against women and girls when it's being perpetrated or thought to be perpetrated by brown people.
That perception issue, Luke, is a big part of this. When you hear from people who live in places where migrants are being housed, Crowborough, for example, in East Sussex, one of the things that people often say is, who are these undocumented young men who are roaming around the streets? Is this document going to give them something to say, well, this proves our point?
I think there's a very real risk of that. As you say, you know, we speak to people around the country, and we've spoken to a lot of people in areas that have had asylum hotels, and there is no doubt that over the past year, one of the biggest concerns from people has been, after a number of quite high-profile cases, worries about safety, worries about sexual assault. And I think for a lot of people, you know, you would hope that everyone in the UK understands, you know, whether migrant or not, understands what's in that leaflet. But I think for a lot of people, the fact that the Home Office has seen that they have to put it into a document will exactly lead to people thinking, well, I was right then. All of those concerns that I had were right. And I think it risks actually making public anxiety higher and frustration at the government higher. And I just think, you know, for Andy Burnham has had, I think, a pretty good rollout as Prime Minister. I think, you know, government's made very few missteps, certainly compare it to the early Starmer government. I wonder if the handling of this sort of, you know, it being, you know, just sort of ending up on the website, not really having a plan to deal with public concern about it, is his first misstep.
Yeah. John, let's look at migration from the point of view of the other side of the Channel now, because there's some footage of the French authorities dealing with a migrant boat. Tell us more about this.
Well, these pictures have been released by the UK's Border Security Command, and the Home Office is claiming that it shows that an agreement that the government signed with France in April is bearing results, producing results. What the pictures show, first of all, you see the French police being attacked by migrants attempting to cross the Channel. Migrants wearing jackets, throwing stones at officers to try and keep them away from their dinghy. And then the French police responding by using a pava spray, it's like a pepper spray, before they slashed the boat with inflatable boat with a knife. Now, what Shabana Mahmood is saying is that since this deal in April, 185 small boat crossings have been prevented, 4,300 migrants have been stopped from reaching the UK, that's in 3 months. Launches have been stopped, boats, engines and life jackets seized, and smugglers arrested, she says. However, Chris Philp, remember him in the Channel, claiming he'd been shot at by the French Navy.
When they're just testing a pistol or something.
Yeah, the thing is, I looked very carefully. He didn't actually duck. I don't know what they were. I'm not sure what they were firing at, but I'm not sure they were firing at Chris Philp. Anyway, he says that Shabana Mahmood's claims are a joke. That's his word. He says that Channel crossing preventions are down by half over the past year, and French police are instructed, he claims, not to intervene when migrants attempt to cross the Channel. Now, we did a survey. We did an opinion poll, not your firm, YouGov.
Sorry, Luke.
Did a poll for us.
Very good one.
41% believe the problem of small boats would be better solved by standing up to France. 35% prefer cooperating more closely. And the other interesting thing for our poll was 40% of Britons believe the numbers crossing in small boats are rising. 22% correctly believe the numbers are down. Now, Mr. Philp obviously disputes these figures. The latest Home Office figures, January to this week, earlier this week, 16,000 That's compared with nearly 28,000 last year. Well, Mr Phillips disputes those figures.
How can he? They've been Home Office. You think
he has
selective,
said
selective figures?
In a statement tonight, he says that the preventions are down. He says the preventions are down by half over the past year. And he claims the French police are instructed not to intervene.
Oh, well.
I'm sure Chris Philp believes a lot of things, but we deal in facts on this programme. But I do think, if I can just say quickly, that I think the survey point about people thinking it's rising when it's falling is really key. People also think that when it comes to net migration in general, not asylum crossers, but legal migration. And people also vastly overstate the proportion of migrants who come here illegally versus legally. So there is a policy challenge here, but there's also a perception challenge, a communication challenge that no government, Labour or the previous Conservatives, have been able to solve.
We do try to deal in facts, you're absolutely right. But we're happy to hear opinions as well, by the way. That's why you're both here. What do you make of that video? Because, look, I mean, Chris Philp will make the argument. Will, of course, disagree with the current Home Secretary. But certainly if this footage is to be believed, then to some degree, Luke, it's working.
Well, it doesn't surprise me at all that the Home Office is putting out this footage precisely because, you know, that YouGov polling shows that our polling and focus group show there is actually a real frustration when we chat to the public, particularly more socially conservative members of the public, about the sense that we give all this money to France and yet they're not doing their job to stop it. Why do we keep giving them this money if they're not doing anything to stop it? It should be France's problem. And so clearly this is part of the Home Office saying, look, actually this money we're putting over is delivering results, they are doing stuff, so it's about public confidence. Because the issue with small boats is, and the reason that you get those sort of perception gaps where people think that it's going up rather than going down, is it's such a visual image for people. You know, unlike sort of overall levels of migration, people see the Channel crossings, you know, they hear about the 230 seat dinghy that came over, and it's really hard for people to see that and not think, gosh, this is a growing problem.
So Thank you all. Just very briefly, Sir Ed Davey said this week the problem is all because of Brexit. And he's also called on the British government to join a new EU scheme to try and sort this out, to do with migration and so on. So we'll see if the government takes up that offer. I suspect probably not.
John, it is good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. You left your phone in here again.
I know,
in the last hour.
It's in my pocket now.
Well, you have to take it because Chris Philp will be texting you, no doubt. Coming up, will tougher punishments in the form of bigger fines stop criminal gangs from waste dumping and fly tipping?
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Fines for criminals who dump waste illegally are to go up from £300 to £5,000. Government funds are also being diverted to help clean up 3 huge mounds of rubbish that are blighting Kent, Surrey and West Yorkshire. Critics, though, say it's not enough to stop the fly tippers, as Sky's Shingi Mararike explains.
Mountains of waste piling up across the country, causing outrage that has now prompted a political response. This site on the Isle of Sheppey in Kent, one of the 3 places the Prime Minister promises to clear as part of a wider crackdown. One he says will bring the gangs behind waste crime to justice.
We are changing the approach. We've begun a much more networked approach to this, where we're bringing the National Crime Agency in to work with the Environment Agency, increasing the penalties and bearing down now on the organised crime that lies behind some of what you see behind me.
Part of that new approach includes increasing fines for criminals, bringing in drones for surveillance, and giving local councils more power to deal with the issue.
There's a lot of smoke.
Yeah, you can smell it as well. It's a very strong sort of plasticky smell coming out of there.
There are environmental concerns to deal with too, as Sky News has found at multiple sites, including this one in Nottinghamshire.
There was more than 55,000 tonnes of waste dumped here at Ranskill, according to the latest Environment Agency figures. But it's not just the scale of the waste being dumped here that's an issue, it's also what's in it. A Sky News investigation earlier this year revealed chemical substances found in the materials being dumped here. Another concern is the changing tactics of the criminal gangs, who now, instead of piling the rubbish high behind me, are also burying it in the ground.
This local councillor from the area not entirely convinced by today's announcement.
Anything that is additional is a help. That's the first thing to say. That's a positive thing. The negative side is we are shocked, dismayed, disappointed that we, as having 55,000 dumps of whatever it is, we don't know what it is not part of the 3 to be cleared up immediately.
The Prime Minister sees this as a pledge that protects communities from fly tippers. But just how much difference the new plans will make is being questioned by legal experts.
The claims that he's making are very bold and welcomed with my colleagues and myself in the industry. But some of the claims are factors that are already available. So I'm not sure whether some of it's a bit of rhetoric to make it look like something's being done. For example, he's saying there's new powers to seize vehicles. That power's already available.
Illegal waste sites are blighting communities across the country. But this is an issue that goes beyond just cleaning up. It's about tackling criminality and environmental damage too. Shingi Mararike, Sky News, Ranksill.
It's easy to understand, both of you, isn't it, why criminal gangs are involved in this. Hard to catch them. They probably make quite a lot of money off it, and they can keep doing it. And they often do keep going back to the same places as well. So the question, Luke, is the change in fines from 300 quid to 5,000 going to make much of a difference?
Well, look, I mean, I actually don't know how many people currently get caught by the fines, but, you know, it all comes down to, can you actually catch and identify these people? Because if you can't, any level of fine isn't going to make a difference. If you can, it might be that the current economics are such that people will take a small fine because the dumping is so lucrative, whereas a larger fine makes it less viable. But I think the more important thing actually here is that the message that Burnham is sending to the public, which is, I get it. This is the sort of thing you hate. You can't understand why we don't tackle it. They want to see that he's trying to do something about it. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't have to deliver results. But I think even addressing it, even saying it's an issue, does say something to the public. I think it's interesting that they've picked those 3 sites, you know, those 3 very visible sites. He, of course, has one in his own constituency that most of Westminster got to see during our month in Makerfield. But I think the fact that he's got those 3 sites, you've got then a visual image of progress that people can see and then he can come back to.
That's an interesting point, Rachel, that Luke makes there. It's the stuff we can see. He seems to be intent on sorting out.
Yeah, it's really visible. And it's also one of those things where knowing that there's a big illegal waste site in your local area, that has an impact on behaviour, on individuals. You see more, you know, discarded rubbish, just not put there by criminal gangs, but just because people lose pride in their local areas.
It's the broken windows thing that they did in New York, isn't it, famously? They sort out the broken windows and the bigger crime is dealt with too.
People talk about that in terms of potholes, in terms of boarded up shops in high streets, in terms of just
rough sleeping,
in terms of the local areas just not feeling like they're very pleasant places to be. So that's a real issue. I don't quite share Luke's optimism that just saying, I get it, is enough. I totally accept that some optimism is really welcome and needed. And one of the issues that Keir Starmer had is he just kept saying everything that they couldn't do. I mean, that awful, awful speech in the Downing Street Garden the summer after the election, where he basically said, we can't do anything because there's no money. And the vibe just disintegrated there. But people are also sick of politicians who make promises and then they don't see results. And so if he says, this, I get this is a problem and we're going to fix it, whether it's, you know, fly tipping or rough sleeping, and then people can't see at least some improvement. It doesn't have to be fixed, but some improvement, then the despondency and the despair kicks in and people go, well, you're just like all the others. And I think there's a very real risk of that.
Yes, like you said last night, Luke, people want to see a plan. They don't expect you to solve it overnight, but they want to sense that things may be moving forward. It is time now to see what is making the front pages of tomorrow's papers. And the Eye's lead story is the Sussexes returning to Britain, but without taxpayer-funded security arrangements in place, they say. Daily Mail carries estimates that funding could cost £5 million a year. Daily Mirror hears the King and Prince William's opinion of the couple has not changed and says they won't be welcome. According to the Daily Telegraph, though, that won't stop Harry from trying to regain his father's trust. The Sun reports that Charles, Camilla, William and Catherine have travelled to Balmoral to discuss the matter. Here's the Times, their headline, King puts William first as Harry heads home. While the Daily Express describes Harry and Meghan as back in the fold, but not in the firm. And the Daily Star suggests the move is happening in part because they don't like Donald Trump. Different story in The Guardian. It speaks to the Minister for Women and Equalities, Bridget Phillipson, who accuses Reform and the Conservatives of encouraging racism and misogyny in the UK. The Metro hails as a hero the man who used a hosepipe to tackle an apparent arson attack on his neighbour's home in West London. And the Financial Times has a report on the current state of long-term government bonds in the US. Well, a lot in the papers about the royals, so who are we to argue with that? Rachel, why don't we start with back but without security arrangements in place, according to the Eye. As far as we know it, but they might have sorted this out before deciding to come home.
They might have sorted something out with the Home Office, with the royal family, with the King, who, let's not forget, was paying for Andrew's security. So there are ways round it. I'm interested because every front page, except the FT, has this story on the front. And we were discussing a moment ago the YouGov polling that suggests that 45% of people either don't know or don't care whether they should come back. And I think there is not so much a mismatch, but the paper, the enthusiasm with which all of the papers have gone, it's a non-politic story, it's a royal story, we can put Meghan on the cover. I used to be the online editor at the New Statesman, and one of the things I quickly discovered is if you could get Meghan Markle into a headline, you were almost guaranteed to go viral.
Yeah.
That was a couple of years ago. It is clearly still the rationale being used by editors today.
Well, I wonder where they learnt that from. I mean, the Daily Express had Princess Di on their front page for about 10 years solid.
Still
didn't
does
it?
sometimes.
So, still does sometimes, exactly. Still box office. More importantly, the Daily Mail, Luke, has their security could cost, that's if the taxpayer pays for it, but if a taxpayer was to, £5 million a year. That's quite a hefty number.
Yeah, and you've got to remember that is coming in the context of the public having heard from politicians, particularly the government, about the difficult decisions that are going to have to be made, the fact that we can't fund the defence investment plan as fully as some people would like, that, there's limits to what the government can do on, tax cuts and that sort of thing. And I think a lot of people are thinking, we've got all of those problems, and suddenly we might be asked to stump up an extra $5 million, which I think does explain why Andy Burnham has perhaps tried to kick it away from him a little bit, and why I suspect that whatever decision is come to ultimately will be some kind of compromise, which I suspect must involve the Sussexes digging into their own pocket at least a little bit.
Just final quick look at the Daily Star's headline, Harry's Don around Trump's reason for US Megxit. And I guess, do they really know this? I guess this answers your question, Rachel, about why it features on the front pages, is because they can kind of do what they like on this one. They can just gossip to their heart's content, and it's sort of not going to cause too many problems.
Yeah, they're suggesting it's because they've got sick of Donald Trump's America, although they're coming back to the country where the king is the UK government's key asset when it comes to Donald Trump. So, I don't know, maybe they'll get roped into the next state visit.
A quick word on GCSEs, which feature inside the Eye tomorrow, Luke. And let's get you to take us to the break on this one, because you were heavily involved in changing grades from A to E and from 1 to 9. 9 being the highest and the best, although a 7 is equivalent of an... Anyway, look, it's very confusing, but it's your fault. Nevertheless, the gender gap is narrowest since 2000 after the GCSE results were handed out today.
Yeah, and look, I should just say, the reason for changing from the letters to the numbers is these are new qualifications. They're actually tougher and broader than the ones that came before. So all these people saying, oh, it wasn't like that in my day. No, it wasn't. It's much harder.
Try telling the kids who are disappointed they didn't get a 9 that a 7 is an A.
But a 7, 7 is a really good result, and people should be really proud of it. But I actually think, the gender gap story, I think, is interesting because we've spent a lot of time recently, rightly, hand-wringing about underperformance of young men, particularly at 16. And the fact that the gender gap is narrowing hopefully indicates that, perhaps some of the interventions, some of the things that have been tried there are solving it. Of course, there are two ways that things can narrow. One is that boys are doing better. The other might be that the performance of girls is coming down. So you can't celebrate too much. But I do think, given this sense that we were almost risking operating sort of two-track education system, certainly in terms of results between boys and girls, anything that addresses that, I think, is a good thing.
Do you know what? I love seeing the pictures of them opening the results. It's that first big test in life, isn't it? Getting your GCSE. I mean, you may have done the 11 plus, something like that, but certainly GCSEs are the big first one. And I just take my hat off to anybody who got their results today.
It's a taste of adulthood, isn't it?
It is.
It's something that you had to do to achieve, and I think that's it's the first time really that kids get that.
Absolutely, although I try and erase my own results from my memory. Coming up next, we'll discuss more of the biggest and best stories from tomorrow's papers.
jubilation in the streets, while some emotional. This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Let's get straight back to the papers and let's have a look at the front page of The Guardian, Rachel, because Bridget Phillipson is accusing the Reform and the Tories of fueling bigotry and racism. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, there's been a criticism of Labour under Starmer that Labour ministers didn't want to call out the rising rhetoric against immigrants, against non-white people, and that the climate actually for Britain's non-white community had got really quite nasty, and the Starmer government had nothing to say about it. And this is Bridget Phillipson, demoted from Education Secretary, but still with the Women's Inequalities brief, sort of coming out and saying that she is worried about an increase in racism and sexism, and specifically calling out Reform and Conservative politicians for their role in it, which is not a comment that I can imagine anyone making under Starmer.
Yeah, OK. Listen, I want to finish our paper review with some couple more slightly less serious stories. Let's dive in the Metro, because on page 5, Luke, they have a terrible-sounding story about something that's happened to a hedge version of Peppa Pig. Bizarre. Go on.
This is heartbreaking, I think, actually. So a beloved Peppa Pig hedge sculpture has been beheaded by vandals. Apparently it took years to grow, and the person who grew it is very distressed by it. But, you know, I'd put people like that in the stocks, you know, if you do that.
Or behead them.
Well, not behead them, but, you know, maybe pelt some fruit at them. It's just so mean-spirited. Yeah, it's Sycamore Gap. I mean, it's not quite Sycamore Gap, Peppa Pig, but, you know, it's... You know.
Put them in the stocks and let Daddy Pig on them and see what happens then, because I bet he takes no prisoners. Let's finish off looking at the Eye. Great Expectations has been translated into Gen Alpha slang. How does that work, Rachel?
It's going to be called Bare Expectations, released as a 35-minute audiobook. But the Eye, I think, has really just done this story so it can have a little glossary of Gen Alpha slang for sort of parents to read into. Skibbity.
Skibbity, what does that mean?
Skibbity, nonsense. I quite like that one.
Yeah, I like that one.
I like that one.
Riz is charisma, I've heard of that one.
That's old.
Yeah.
That's old. Or is a bit old as well. They haven't got Sigma on.
I mean, anything I say about this is going to make me sound old, because I am low-key cringe, according to my Gen Alpha daughter on this. Mogging?
Mogging. So that's like frame mogging. So I would say Rachel is frame mogging us at the moment, because she's outshining us in this studio, I think.
And I would say that Luke is glazing me right now, which is overly praising, often in a disingenuous way.
And I'll finish by saying, by both of you, I've been slimed, which is killed. You've overshadowed me. Brilliant to have you on. Not low-key, but high-key, if I can keep up with the Gen Alpha. I know, gosh, the director's super impressed by my Gen Alpha slang. High-key, brilliant, both of you. Thank you very much indeed, Luke and Rachel. Coming up in the sport, the former Wimbledon champion Carlos Alcaraz is set to make his comeback from injury.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood is rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty.
War isn't pretty.
Sky News has been given exclusive data showing every Palestinian who has been killed in Gaza since the war began. Our analysis of this pattern in the killings suggests that entire families were wiped out in their homes or shelters. The data and forensics team is a multi-skilled unit dedicated to providing transparent journalism from Sky News.
We located footage of the aid drop to a tent camp in central Gaza.
These airdrops are falling in extremely populated areas.
We combine traditional reporting with advanced analysis of satellite imagery, social media, and other open source information. Now, this is just one of the strikes and incidents we've been able to geolocate across Gaza.
Sky News has found Nazi speeches and marching music have been used as background sound on tens of thousands of TikTok videos as far-right groups try and spread their message.
Sky News has seen 72,000 posts used in this way. There's no evidence yet of foul play at Heathrow. It shows weaknesses that enemies could take advantage of. Elon Musk says it is, quote, a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America. Supporters say it saves lives and projects American power and influence.
I think we would generally be called far right, sure.
It's called Return to the Land, and they invited me in.
A lot of people are going to be, why are you making Nazi references?
Right. Well, why wouldn't I?
Its founder says he is building a fortress for the white race.
It's a racial association. I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
We followed a social media trail that led us to Bristol, where a confrontation between protesters erupted into a full-scale riot.
Here it really is pitched battle skirmishes, hurling missiles, throwing punches.
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Big Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Let's get the latest now from Sky Sports News. Here's Jessica.
Bid has been tabled by Manchester City for Dimitar Berbatov in the last few minutes.
We've made an offer. I think it's agreed between ourselves and Tottenham, and now really it's about the Birmingham decision, I think.
City come in and you're thinking, goodness me, this is another statement from them.
When did you become aware that Manchester City had entered the race?
On the way to the Carrington, then I find out that City are coming in with the offer.
Are you on the phone to Robbie Keane saying, is he signing or not?
Yeah, a little bit.
Did you fear at one stage that he would go to Manchester City?
No, I didn't fear it.
If City had snatched that one right at the death, the noisy neighbours would have been absolutely the noisiest ever.
The question now is, which hospital is he going to have his medical? Is it Manchester City's hospital or Manchester United?
My agent is telling me, in the car, someone called him. He's in the front seat. Sir Alex is next to him. I'm in the back seat. So someone is calling him and telling him that. And I'm like thinking to myself, so how do I react here? What do I say? What is Alex going to say? And I'm like, Emil, no. You know where we're going. We know what we came for. It's just one club here. We'll go for United.
If he sort of turned at the last minute and gone to Man City, then it probably wasn't the right player for us anyway. I was confident that he wouldn't go there in the end.
I do think they were trying to get under United's skin. I think it was kind of like, we'll show you. We can certainly challenge you money-wise now. Any player United would have gone for that day, that summer, City probably would have thrown their hat in the ring as well.
Why were you so set on United?
It was like the badge, it was like the history, it was like the players, it was like the legends, it was like the trophies, the manager, the fans, the stadium, the aura.
You definitely joining Man United tonight?
We go to Old Trafford where the offices were. I go in, I see the whole table full of documents ready to be signed, if needed to be signed, but prepared just in case. Then I go to a different room with David Gill, with Sir Alex, my agent, the lawyers. It was up and down to the corridors, to the offices, people talking on the phone. Daniel Levy calling on one line and say, come back right now, we're not letting you go.
I can get frantic and sitting here calmly. I wouldn't like to sort of give you the impression that you don't have to lose your rag occasionally, you don't have to sort of push things or get on with your lawyers or make certain phone calls. But I think ultimately, you know, if you're experienced in terms of what's required, you can get it done.
My agent is trying to convince him, no, we already had a deal. Then I took the phone and like, Daniel, please, we had a deal, I'm staying here, bam. Then he calls again, a bit more calm down. Okay, maybe we can work something out. Maybe the price was going up at times as well, trying to negotiate it more time. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's not gonna happen.
Thanks, Jess. Let's take a look at the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
We are in a cooler spell with some heavy showers around, but the weekend is going to be mostly fine. Many places will have a dry start on Friday, if cool, but there'll be a few showers dotted about, some heavy and prolonged. Expect more showers through Friday morning, but they'll be more scattered than today, with good sunny spells. The Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, North East England, Wales and the West Country will see the most showers, some of those heavy. The greatest risk of thundery downpours is going to be in the southwest. It's going to be on the cool side, temperatures a little bit low, below the average for many. Friday afternoon will be drier across Scotland, Northern England and Northern Ireland, with any showers there tending to clear. Further south, there'll be a risk of showers well into the evening with hail and thunder possible. Saturday looks quite cool, but mostly dry with plenty of sunshine. There'll be just a few showers about, concentrated over northwest Scotland. It'll be blustery on the coast.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, that was the wrap. Really appreciate having your company. Thanks for watching. All the top stories coming up right here on Sky News through the night, of course. I'll be back with the wrap tomorrow at 10. See you then.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armory.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.